Good morning, everybody. Sorry for the little start late here. We have a blast of summer rolling through Dallas, and then we'll have winter tonight. So I appreciate our guest today coming out, even though she is feeling a little bit under the weather. So she's an amazing attorney. She has been running for criminal court force, so she's a candidate for that office. Coming up here in 2017. So I do want to let you guys know this is part 3 of the series that we've been doing for the month of December with discussing domestic violence, custody issues, and how those kinds of cases intermingle with the family court system and can influence who becomes the custodial parent. So I want to give a warm Coffee and Politics 101 welcome to Ramiko Edwards. Thank you so much for coming. So Ramiko, if you could just give my viewers a little bit of information about your background and who you are as an attorney.
Thank you, Sydney. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for the opportunity to come and share with you all today. And I ran for office in 2014 for County Criminal Court number 4. There are plans for the future for 2018 to run for office again. It won't be County Criminal Court number 4.
Oh, okay.
But it will be, I'm thinking maybe one of the criminal misdemeanor benches in Dallas County.
Oh, really?
So that's the plan.
Great.
I am a criminal attorney. I practice also juvenile and family law.
Okay.
I do a little personal injury. I have a general practice. We primarily, if someone is in need of help, we try to assist if we can. If we can't, we refer them out to someone that can.
Great.
But I've been practicing law for about 10 years.
Okay.
I'm originally from Selma, Alabama.
All right.
My parents moved to Dallas almost 32 years ago. Father was in the military. And he retired here.
Okay,
so
great.
Texas became our home, but it's still Roll Tide Roll.
There we go. There we go. Now, you did work with a relative of mine, Michael Todd. So I know he is a big criminal attorney here in Dallas. So I know that you did a lot of work with him. So tell us kind of how did you, being a criminal attorney and focusing on that, how did you then get into the family and the juvenile cases?
Michael was Mr. Todd, I call him. Even though we have a very close personal relationship, I still respect him to the utmost. He's my mentor. When I came back from Houston, I attended Thurgood Marshall School of Law in Houston, Texas. When I moved back, I was searching for a mentor, and Mr. Todd and Russell Wilson opened their doors at their law office, and they showed me the ropes. And just from the experience of criminal law, when you meet a client, they come with a lot of issues. And criminal issues is not the only thing. Right. Because once that door is open, it starts to affect their children and their family as it relates to, especially when domestic violence is the issue. Yes. And you have the issue of divorces. Yes. So divorces come in. At times we have clients with those type of charges. And then when you have any type of violent offense, whether it is assault or sexual abuse, then
family violence,
domestic violence, then you have the issue of removal of children from homes. And then you have the issues of CPS coming in. Yes. So the door just opens up. When the criminal door opens up, a lot of other doors open up.
Wow, and that's really good to know. And with the other judges that have been on the show talking about the domestic violence issue, Judge Kanye has definitely stressed not breaking up families. So I know when CPS gets involved, that can open up a big can of worms with the scrutiny of your interaction with your children. So can you talk about what is CPS looking for when someone calls in and reports potential abuse to a child?
I would say initially there's the investigation part of the process. It is required by law that CPS investigate any report. When somebody calls in to report any type of abuse or neglect by a parent. And that person does not have to be just a stranger. That person, as a lawyer, I have an obligation by law. If I have a client and I hear anything in which I believe that there is some abuse or neglect of a child, I'm obligated by law to report it. And that's the same when it comes to educators, when it comes to doctors. They have to make that report. But generally, when a report comes in, it's anonymous.
Okay.
And when that report comes in by law, CPS has to investigate.
Sure.
So they investigate. That's the investigation process. The problem, a lot of times that I see with that part is that you don't get representation on that.
No, you do not. And for someone who may feel like, well, I'm not abusing my kids, so I don't have anything to hide, and they just open up their door and home to CPS coming in, and I've heard good and bad come along with that. So the good thing with that is you're willing to cooperate with CPS.
And that's a great thing. When we talk about children, everybody loves their kids.
Yes.
So when you talk about something happened to my child, that opens up the door.
Right.
And we're very protective of our children.
Yes.
And with CPS, by law, having that obligation to investigate, if they come to your home, knock on your door, and you invite them in, the door is open.
Okay.
You can withdraw that consent. And
Okay.
You can
Okay.
withdraw that consent. And I think a lot of parents don't understand that CPS has to get that consent to come in.
Okay, that is something that I would say as a general rule, people don't know that.
You can say no, but like you stated, you have to think of the consequences of saying no.
Okay.
Most of the time people would think, do you have something to hide?
Right, because as an investigator or a social worker or whatnot, then for me, that would show up as a red flag.
And then you have to think about, when a person gets when CPS gets the report of abuse and they try to go out, especially because the whole point is to protect the child.
Right.
Abuse and neglect. That's
Right.
what we're looking for. We want healthy, safe homes.
Yes.
And generally, CPS attempt to go to the schools.
Okay.
But many parents don't know that if CPS goes to the school, if you're there, so you're dropping off your kid and CPS there, they have to get your consent.
Okay.
But if you're not there, they don't.
Okay. Okay.
So, say they come to your home and they attempt to get your consent, and you say no. So they can't go to the school now and talk to your child.
Oh, wow. I didn't
So they
know
have to
that.
have that consent. But
Okay.
once that door is open,
Then they can do their investigation as thoroughly as possible. Okay.
and they look for things. I've seen many successful investigations where CPS is able to come in, they're able to give a safety plan, and
Right.
parents are able to get it together and do what they need to do to keep their
Okay.
child in their home.
Right.
But it is the CPS obligation that if there is a concern for that child, to go ahead and remove that child.
Okay.
And once that child is removed, and then that's when it goes through the court process.
Okay, so let's say that, CPS is coming to the home, they've spoken to you. I'm assuming then they want to speak to the child away from the parents to make sure that there's not any coaching or interference, or to try to minimize nervousness with the child as much as possible. Would you say that's true?
I believe that's true.
Okay.
And generally they're able to do that. When you talk about CPS cases,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, everybody loves their kid. So
Right.
when people come in from the outside and our families are so private,
Yes.
if there's abuse and neglect, it's so evident. Pretty
Okay.
much.
Okay.
If you have a child that's being cursed, they don't call and announce their visit, so it's a surprise.
Right.
So, when they come in, they look in your refrigerator. If you don't have food, water for your child, there's signs.
Okay.
They don't even have to actually talk to the kid there. You can look around the home and tell if there's abuse.
So with that being said then, what are some other signs of abuse and neglect? If I'm just walking into the home and just kind of observing what I'm seeing.
Just think about it. If you get a call about somebody reporting abuse and neglect from a counselor at a school or from someone, and they have a child that seems to be withdrawn or marks
Okay.
on their body. So when they come into the home, they're looking for those things. So when I do a pop-up visit and I'm there, if that child, I come in, not the way they dress, they look at that, they look at the amount of food is in the refrigerator, the cleanliness of the home,
Okay.
the temperament of yourself, your appearance, who's in the home. Everyone that's in the home pretty much is under investigation at that time, because they run background checks on everybody in the home.
Okay.
You may, if you're gonna have someone in your home around your children, you should know.
Right. Yes.
So.
Oh, that's very interesting. So just understanding that, when CPS comes into the home, they're observing everything that's going on, even though, pardon me, as an inexperienced person, let's say this is, my first rodeo with CPS, I'm not understanding that they're taking so many notes of what they're seeing. So if you come into the house and you see, a healthy kid just playing and they're just kind of doing their thing, and the parent is interacting with CPS, what kind of information would a CPS investigator see that, you have a kid that's over here being independent, they're doing their thing, and the parent is trying to give as much information as they can?
A cooperative parent that is not ashamed of their home and as it relates to any report, because they know what's going on the inside, it's okay. And so many times you have workers that come in, investigators that come in, and they understand the dynamics of the family.
Okay.
So they're able to rule out. They're able to stop this CPS any type of incident before it starts.
Okay.
But a lot of times, because these are our kids, we get excited. Our emotions
I can
run.
see being very nervous and feeling like, I'm under scrutiny and my parenting is being challenged.
Definitely. And when we do that, we shut the door.
Okay.
And so that sparks the investigation.
Okay.
If you're not cooperative. What I say when it comes to families, they tell us get a will.
Mm-hmm.
People tell you make sure you have a will, living
Right.
will, things that happen. But as living parents with children, I say get a parenting plan.
Right.
What people fail to do is to have a plan when CPS or anybody comes and they're trying to target your children. What would happen?
Right.
Who's gonna take care of my kids if I get
Right.
removed at this point?
Mhm.
So if CPS does come and try to take your children, you have a person lined up to say this person is gonna take my child.
Okay.
Because if you don't, that's how they end up into the foster care system.
Oh, wow. So just understanding here, just kind of the process that if you're being investigated, and let's say something does pop up on your background, even though you're still being cooperative, you're engaged with your kids, you're saying, yes, way back when, 10 years ago, I had a fight with a family member, and yeah, I went ahead and pleaded, I did hit them, or it was just a misunderstanding and I didn't feel like fighting it, because sometimes that will happen as well. Is that being also considered with, I'm coming into your home and I'm viewing what's going on?
Yeah, they already read it. They know your history. If they have a name and a date of birth, they can read your history. And I've had many cases, I have had the opportunity to represent the parent as well as represent the child. It's the guardian ad litem.
Okay.
And in those situations, I've had children that, people that they have planned for, to take their children for a relative placement. And they do a background check. If they have any CPS history, they're out.
Oh, really?
So that grandparent, that great grandparent, that uncle, whatever, they cannot have a child. If they had an open case at some point.
Wow. Even if there wasn't any negative findings?
If it was closed, they have to do that thorough investigation.
Okay.
They have to do a home study to approve the home for the child to stay there.
Okay.
So the child will go into foster care until that home is approved.
Wow.
And then I have a situation where you have people that have criminal background. It may be a case, like you said, it was dismissed. It was, nothing.
But it's
happened.
still a blemish there on
It's
your record.
there. So a lot of people, that we don't do expunctions or petition for non-disclosure because we just stop at the case was dismissed.
Right,
Or
right.
I was found not guilty.
Right.
So, but that charge is there, that arrest is there, and so CPS has an obligation to investigate that to make sure. And then a lot of issues come when they're out-of-state cases. So we have Texas people with Texas cases,
Right.
and they picked up something in Oklahoma, a CPS case. Those files are not easily accessible.
Right,
So
they're
the
not.
time it takes to get that information.
That's a further delay in the investigation and more time that the kids can be away from their parent. Oh, wow. So do you understand that, CPS wants to do as most thorough an investigation to make sure that the child is safe, because first and foremost, that is the primary objective, is to make sure that there are safe homes that children are living in. And they are observing your body language, how you're interacting with them. If your kids are around, how are they behaving in the home? Are they just kind of doing their own thing because this is their home and they're comfortable so they know that they're safe? Or are they, kind of shy? Are they withdrawn? not sure how they should behave, because typically, just working with some of the agencies here that work with domestic violence, you can have situations where it's kind of like you're walking on eggshells around someone who is abusive, because as it was explained, there's an insecurity involved with an abuser, and it's not a personal insecurity that they have about themselves. It's an insecurity about their lifestyle and how they're treating their significant other and their families. And a lot of times with abusers, they don't want their mask that they put on for the public to know that in private they're Mr. Hyde, because out in the public they're trying to come across as being the most liked person ever, that no one would ever think that they would do anything like that. So I can see kids kind of being unsure, and if you have an experienced person coming in and doing an observation, doing a home study, that they're going to be looking for those kinds of signs to see if there is abuse, because no one's going to come out and just flat out say, yeah, you know, we get yelled at if we embarrass our mom or our dad, or, you know, just if I break something, you know, World War II breaks out into the house. So that's very interesting to know that they are making sure that they're doing their part to see everything that's going on with this particular person that's been flagged as being abusive or neglecting their children. So let's say that there's a positive finding. So now CPS is petitioning. They're going to a court and a judge to have the children removed and then either placed with someone or put into the foster system, correct?
That process, once the investigation is completed, if they rule it out, it stops, it's done. But if it's not ruled out, then CPS can file a petition for termination, or removal of the children,
Okay.
which could lead to termination of your parental rights.
Wow.
And at that time that petition is filed, there has to be a hearing within 14 days.
Okay.
So at that hearing, like when they come and they say, okay, we're removing your child.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have anyone for this child to go to, a relative or a friend or someone that this child can stay until that 14-day hearing comes,
Okay.
then they're going to foster care. But
Okay.
at that 14-day hearing, then that's when the court makes a determination as it relates to some temporary orders, and the child's who's gonna be the managing conservator of the child,
Okay.
and what's gonna be required of the parent to get that child returned home.
Okay.
So
Okay.
after that process starts, CPS give a service plan, not a court order. You don't have to do it if you don't want to do it, and that's a lot of times what I see happens with the parents when they get that service plan, especially if they think their issue is not an issue.
Okay.
It's hard. It's like, if
Okay.
I'm using drugs and it's not an issue, I don't want to go to a drug class.
Okay.
Or
But
I
it's
used to
their-
use drugs,
right.
but I don't use it now.
Okay.
But in your history, that was a problem, so
Okay.
you're going to be required to do a drug class.
Now let's say that you have done all of those things before, but that was still.
That is, my parents, they have their certificates, they have everything in a file.
Right.
And they said, I've done this, I don't want to do this again.
Right.
As their attorney, the biggest problem I have is if it was not within a year, you gotta redo it.
Oh, wow. So that's interesting to know that, you know, to make sure that the child is being in a safe home and you're maintaining or getting your parental rights back, and you're able to have your visitation or custody of your child, that you may be required to do more work as a result of, you know, it may have been a problem for you 10 years ago and you successfully completed, you know, let's say I had an alcohol problem and I've gone through the 12-step program, and, you know, I'm coaching other people. I still go to my meetings, but it may not be every week. It may be, you know, once a month that I'm going, because I've been sober for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
So even though CPS may be involved, they may still require me to go back through the 12-step program again. That is very interesting to know. And I can see that being a frustration point for parents.
Yes, it is.
Especially if you have accomplished the goal and you have been clean, you've been sober all of this time, and you've tried to lead an exemplary life because you made a mistake.
And more parents believe, I've proven myself to you already.
Right.
You want me to do this again?
Right.
You know, because
Right.
you got some concerns, but
Right.
I've proven to you that I'm a fit parent. I can take care of my children. But when that inquiry, that report comes, CPS has an obligation.
Okay.
And so once they get involved, once CPS get involved in your life, then the process begins.
Okay.
And as a parent, if you want your child returned home, you have to follow the process.
Okay. So let's say, because, you know, a lot of people unfortunately will do things where I don't want you to have custody. I want to control you. So I'm just going to keep calling CPS on you to try to make them, you know, get involved in your life and make things messy for you and have the spotlight on you.
We know that. We
Okay.
know that does happen. But we also know that if it is found to be true that that is what's going on, it is a criminal offense for you to do that.
Okay.
It is a Class B misdemeanor
Okay.
that you
Okay.
can have against you if it's proven that that's what's
That
going on.
you're making frivolous
False
reports and false allegations with CPS. So, you know, like when I had Judge Brown and Judge Lopez on, you know, I've stressed to my parents and my viewers here that keep the adult stuff adult, keep the kids out of it. Stop making mess for your ex because they moved on with their lives, they're with someone new. You want to be petty. You have some unresolved issues with yourself because the relationship isn't there anymore, or you know you want to get back at your partner because you know you feel like they should be doing more with the kids, or you're trying to control the visitation. That makes messiness for the children, and the kids see what you're doing, and one, they're learning behaviors to either say, I never want to be this, or this is how you get along in life. And if there's somebody that I don't like, or if I want to create havoc for someone, then I can use this entire legal system to beat somebody up. And that is something that we definitely don't want to do with our children and introduce them to this kind of lifestyle where, well, you did something that I don't like, so I'm going to try to make life hard for you. And I have had quite a few guy friends that have, you know, had, as they call it, baby mama drama, which we still need to get away from it. And as a community, you know, do what's right for our kids. If you break up, he wants to move on, she wants to move on. Don't get upset. You know, try to co-parent, because at the end of the day, you created another person with someone. And that child is still both parents. And they don't understand that mom and dad weren't able to work things out. All they know is that they love their mom and they love their father. And they just want to be able to spend time with both of them and it be as positive as an experience as it possibly can. Because one thing we didn't talk about is, what's the stress like for the kids going through this investigation?
Very stressful. As a guardian, I see it because
Okay.
it's my obligation to speak to the children and talk to them and see how they feel through this process and report that back to the court.
Okay.
Many times when you have a child that's having visitation with a parent, and if that parent comes in and all they do is down the other parent, or they talk about you know what's going on in the court process, that child needs that to me.
Okay.
So they're being asked to be an adult and make a decision that they shouldn't have to at this point, because everyone involved is trying to do what's in the best interest of the child. If this child needs to stay or be returned to this home, we're gonna make sure that home is safe.
Okay.
But when you have a situation where parents are, you know, all this mess is going on, especially when domestic violence is an issue, and then the complainant or the victim, even if it's false, go make an allegation, got protective orders, then it messes up visitation. Then you put stipulations on when you can have access to your child.
Yes.
And then if there's pending a divorce proceeding filed, then you have, you know, a whole nother process that the children gotta go to. It's not until they're 12 really that the court will interview that child. So when you have children under the age of 12, just lost when they know they have two parents that love them greatly, but they want each parent to be happy when they see them.
Right.
So when that child goes with this parent for visitation, and if that parent is just dogging the other parent,
Or asking them a lot of
Asking
questions about what's going on
Yeah.
over there, what are y'all doing? And that's one thing that I find really tragic, and that we're introducing our children to a environment where they feel like they're having to report to you what's going on in the other home because mom and dad aren't able to get along. And going through my own struggles and watching my daughter go through struggles, knowing that could play out. Whenever she would come back home, it was like, how's school? Okay, we're gonna go to Friday night football for Skyline. What projects do you have? It was like, and I've talked to other parents, just pick up life where you guys know it and maintain you guys normal, and let them come and tell you if there's something going on in the other home. Because I know
it's hard for the child.
it is.
And when you have a older sibling, I'm the oldest of three, and anytime going to grandparents' house in the summertimes and parents are not there, I just took on the responsibility of taking care of my brother and sister.
Your siblings, yeah.
And so a lot of times I see the older the system tried to keep them together.
Right.
Every time they can, because you may have a foster home that won't take a child of a certain age.
Okay.
So if you have siblings different age groups, they have to be separated. But when they do keep them together, and then you have that oldest child reporting everything that's going on in that home to their parent when they go for visits, and then that brings issues because that child is trying to be an adult
And trying to protect.
and protect their siblings.
And that's not their siblings are protected. I'm an only child, so I don't know that world. But I have heard from friends that yeah, you look out for your siblings, but it's not your job to suit up and scrutinize everything and watch over everything, because at that point the kid is no longer being a kid. So I do want to take a little break here because we have Judge Frizzell that has joined us. So I do want to take some time to introduce her. So we will be back in about 5 minutes here. Thank you, thank you. Good to see you. Let me get you all set up here with some green tea. Great job, great job.
How you doing, Jay?
Oh, how are you?
Everything. I got a cold. I got sick.
I'm
like, this is not right. I told her, I said,
Shut down last night. I went to all these events Thursday night, and I knew I didn't need to be out there. It got worse.
and I didn't have a coat on. And that wind, that was like, it
Last
hit
night,
me.
my husband was like, "You don't go anywhere. You're not gonna be any good the rest of this week."
I know. I appreciate you guys coming
I'm
out. Do you need to
coming.
top off on your car?
I think it's the weather gets real cold, and then it
Yes.
70. Then it'll be 30 tomorrow. Yeah.
So we're gonna switch into Judge here.
Yes. So, Judge, if you could come
I
and get
thought it
center
was
stage.
just me. I was like,
Mm-mm.
"Ooh."
Yeah, because I was like, okay, I'm cold yesterday, and then all of a sudden now, I have on a summer dress,
Right.
and then tonight it's supposed to be like
Tomorrow.
20
in the
in
teens.
the teens.
Right.
Yes. All righty. So, everybody, thank you, and please pardon us while we were shifting here and just kind of talking about the weather and whatnot. So, I want to introduce Judge Elizabeth Frizzell. She is with the Criminal District Court number 7. So if you could introduce yourself to my audience here and just give us a little bit about your background.
I have been a district court judge for the past 2 years. I was elected in 2014. I've served 2015 and 2016. And prior to that, I was judge of County Criminal Court number 11. That's a domestic violence court in Dallas County, and I served as presiding judge for 8 years there.
Okay.
And before that, I was a municipal court judge for the city of Dallas. any other smaller cities, Ball Springs, Lucas.
Oh, you have a very extensive background as being a judge here.
I
Wow.
did that for many years part-time before I
Mhm.
became a full-time judge, and because I did it part-time, I could also practice as
Okay,
an attorney. So I opened my own practice and did criminal defense for 13 years
okay.
before I ran for the county court seat in court number 11.
Very good. And you also have a Star Courts, correct?
I do. I have a Star Court diversion program in my district court now. And what STAR is, it stands for Strengthening, Transition, and Recovery. And it's for women who have had lifestyles of prostitution, drug addiction, mental health issues, and it's just taking their life on a different path.
Okay,
And, nobody grows up wanting to get into that lifestyle.
Yes.
Different things have caused their life to go in that direction. And a lot of times, it's been sexual abuse in their family when they were very young. Domestic violence within their family. Sometimes they were out on the street at very young ages, 13, 14, 15.
Mhm.
Hard to make money, and they get pulled into the lifestyle. And then it
yes.
just continues. Then they drop out of school, then it's hard to get a job. It's just hard to get out of that cycle. So our program is a 12 to 18-month program that changes that lifestyle, helps them get free of drugs. We start off with a drug intervention program. Once they're drug-free, we do random testing. Once they're drug-free, we go into mental health if that's a component that's needed.
Okay,
Make sure they have a doctor to give them prescription medications. And then we go into an aftercare to help them get skills. If they don't have a GED, they get a GED.
okay.
If they do, try to get job skills training so they can get into a line of work where this is my career. This is
Right.
where I'm headed financially, so I don't have to be dependent on other people for money.
That is great. And a lot of times with women going down that road, children are introduced to this world, unfortunately. And it could set them up to follow into the same cycle that mom was in. So it's great to hear about your specialty court that focuses on changing, the mindset and the lifestyle and letting someone know that those are not their only options. Because I always stress to people that, I don't sell drugs because I want to. Yes, Nino Brown made it look very Hollywood, and it was great, and you get all this money and have all this wealth, and you can buy things and you can move and shake around town and whatnot. And in reality, that's so far from what really goes on. And people don't necessarily say, yeah, I want this life of crime because, yeah, it's so glamorous. And so knowing that your court is doing something, and it's just for females, correct?
It's just for females.
Okay,
And we take all ages as long as you're 18 and up.
okay,
And it's interesting what you just said. It seems attractive, and I think that's how they get a lot of the ladies into it, because you have money, you have this lifestyle, but there's
Yes.
there's such a high price that
Right.
comes along with it. A lot of times when they start to become drug-free, the people that are around them don't want them to be drug-free because they'll make better
Yes.
choices, and they want them to be dependent, so they have to break those relationships that are negative relationships. Always tell them you want a support base, but you want a positive support base.
yes.
You have to make sure the people around you are positive. They may not like this new lifestyle you're going into
Yes.
because you're no longer dependent on them.
Right. And a lot of times when you're being pulled into that lifestyle, there is a self-esteem component that is involved, and those people will definitely try to play on that to make sure that you stay inside that world and that circle. So thank you for giving us that information.
We actually had a couple of pimps that would have them call them daddy
Oh, wow.
because they knew they never had a father. And that's how they met them. They're like, oh, I'll be here for you. I feel bad that your life went in that direction. You never have to worry about anything. I'm going to protect you. I'm going to take care of you. I'm your daddy. And so they would always say daddy or big daddy in their mind that was training them. I'm like a father. Don't ever leave me no matter what. I'll
Right.
be here for you. So they're
Right.
replacing that person that was never there in their life. And that's how they keep that attraction to them.
That bond
Where they
there.
never want to leave them no matter what they do to them. They'll always come back.
Just an abusive cycle there that can show up for sure. So I asked you to be a guest on today to just kind of talk about, CPS proceedings when they're coming before the bench. And so there's been an accusation of abuse or neglect of some type. in the home, and CPS has found some positive findings, as they like to say. So for the CPS investigator, they have seen enough signs, as Ramiko was speaking to, and evidence in the home, talking with the child, observing the parent and talking to the parent and looking at their background, that there is a concern, and CPS wants to intervene with the parent-child relationship to make sure that the child is safe. So could you talk to us about, when CPS is petitioning to have a child removed from a home?
Yes, I thought that was a really good point that Ms. Ramiko Edwards brought out about cooperating with CPS.
Yes.
Critical. If a lot of times if people will cooperate, the investigation wouldn't go as far as it ends up going.
Okay.
They're resistant because as soon as you come in, they're thinking, oh, they're looking for something negative. I just don't want to talk to them. I'm going to shut down. It might not have been anything to have to follow up on an investigation or allegation, but being cooperative is very important. If there is an issue, if you can work to correct that issue, they're going to set up a parenting plan with you.
Okay.
And a parenting plan just lists everything the court expects you to do if you want the children to be returned.
Okay.
At that point, the children could be with grandmother, grandfather, aunt, uncle, and they'll say you need to take parenting classes. You need to become drug-free.
Okay.
You need to be able to pass a drug test. So when we were talking about the program that I have, there are
Yes.
other programs in other courts, whether it's Veterans Court, Mental Health Court, drug abuse, alcohol programs. They have 7 different diversion programs right here in Dallas County. If you can complete a program like that, that looks so good in front of the judge. If
Okay.
you can say, yes, CPS had to get involved, but I've corrected some things in my life. I completed this program. I will send a letter over to the court saying you've completed STAR court, because they know that means you have at least 12 to 18 months drug-free, because we do random testing, we do testing whenever you come to court, whenever you report to your probation officer,
Yes.
and they know all the services that are provided. You have to have completed all the phases.
And that you have signed off on their success.
Right. So often you have friends and family members that fall off because you made all these promises and then they are okay for a while and then you fall back off. So that shows consistency,
Okay.
because they know you're not gonna say a person's doing well and they're ready to get their children back
Right.
if they really aren't. So just like it would go a long way with your family members knowing, hey, this time the change is for real, it's permanent, it goes a long way with the courts if you're trying to have custody returned.
Okay, so there is that relationship then with the criminal courts and the family courts. And so knowing that the scrutiny of your program and the training that parents will receive, that goes a long way to showing that, yes, I'm doing everything that I can to make sure that my children are successful for life, and that I'm the best parent that I can possibly be to make sure that they have a good life. And that is very good to know. So what if someone comes before your court and CPS has got involved? There hasn't really been any positive findings, but there's this long track record. And I know sometimes it can come with cases of molestation and sexual abuse of children, and someone has claimed that this child is being molested by their parents. What does that look like before a judge?
Most of the times what they will do, if there's a criminal allegation like a sexual offense, they're gonna let the criminal court handle that part.
Okay.
They're gonna investigate the rest of it. If they have no findings on anything else, they'll wait and see what happens with the criminal investigation.
Okay.
Sometimes now that they're in there, in the family, they may find other things, which means the children have to be removed and may not be returned until the investigation is over. And that's why it was so important what Ms. Edwards was saying. You need to have a plan for a family member you love and trust, and you know the children will be in good hands to have those children while those investigations are going on.
Okay.
It's difficult with sexual assault. You have sexual assault and sexual molestation.
Okay.
Molestation could be touching.
Okay.
Sexual assault means it's a complete sexual act. Touching is sometimes hard to prove in court.
Okay.
So It may take longer to investigate. There are gonna be a lot of different people that we have to talk to. They're gonna look at the history, the background, so those children will probably be outside in the home, or that perpetrators or alleged perpetrators home until that investigation
It's
is
done. Okay, so I know Judge Magnus did talk about having a forensic psychologist come in and investigate and talk to the children. So that would also be part of anything where there's a claim of touching. I would say not anything up to penetration, because that sounds like that's the division with molestation and sexual assault. And is that correct?
And it could be oral, it could be other types of sexual
Okay.
assaults, but yes, they're always gonna do a forensic interview with the child. And they have an expert sit down with the child and just go over, we call it all the elements of the offense. There are certain things that the prosecutors have to prove their case.
Okay.
They know what those are, so they'll frame it in the form of questions that the child would answer. The child may not even know that this is what is necessary to prove the case. The expert is just talking to them in regular language to see exactly what happened and if there's enough to move forward on the case.
Okay.
They may ask a question like, well, did he or she touch you? Well, how did they touch you? Where did they touch you? Sometimes children will use terms that could be ambiguous down there. Okay,
Okay.
well, tell us a little bit about that. What do you
What's
consider
down there?
Or they may use other colloquial terms, and you have to break down what does that mean, so that in court, it doesn't get construed as something different and they can't meet the elements. That's all a part of what they'll do in a forensic interview.
Okay. So parents, I want y'all to understand that, one, these allegations are not light allegations. You are putting your child through a lot of stressful situations, talking to strangers, which, if I was a child, I would be concerned and maybe nervous and afraid talking to these strangers about, what's going on. Children are naturally protective of their parents and don't necessarily want to get their parents in trouble, so to speak. So I would assume that during the forensic interview and discussion that those types of elements are also looked at as part of the interview when they're trying to glean information from the child to see, are they trying to not get their parent in trouble? Because the kids still love their parents. When Judge Lopez was here, it did sound like, in those situations, talking to the family court judge, that some children are more open and more talkative. But, sometimes children can be shut down, and I would think that presents a big challenge with talking to children. And Ramigo, in your experience with being a guardian and representing children in the court, have you seen situations like that? And how do you deal with that?
I see it a lot. And one of the things, and just correct me if I'm wrong, when it comes to sexual assault cases that involves a child, and especially when it's a child that has been removed from the family or removed, it's a condition of the bond that they can't be around children. So you may have other children in the home. And so and I've had cases where a child has been removed, and sometimes not all children have been removed. And then you have problems where that child that's been removed feel like their mother, most of the time, is taking sides with the person that violated them.
Okay.
And then that child is acting out in a way, and not even through the counseling able to really
Understand what's going on.
right, because they feel isolated or from their family at that point.
And that's a great point that you bring up, because that has been something that is seen with our community, that mom is not with dad anymore, and so mom is dating somebody new, and a lot of times we'll have the child call that new partner Uncle So-and-so, and Uncle So-and-so is around the kids, and because you're dating this person and potentially you're seeing them as a long-term partner, maybe marrying them or remarrying, and so the exposure to the children is going to be high. And for some moms especially, and I hate to say this, but sometimes as Black women we can become so desperate with dating and fall into these traps of well, I have a van, so I'm going to do everything possible to protect and maintain my relationship. And your child has been put in harm's way, and so now your child has accused your new partner of touching them, violating their personal space. And to your point of feeling like, well, you're taking sides with them, and you're my mom, you're supposed to be protecting me, and you're asking me to be okay with what they're doing. And I can, yes.
I find a lot of cases when it crosses over to the criminal side, you have these allegations made, and then, as Judge stated, you have to come up with some type of safety plan. And in that safety plan, the perpetrator cannot be around the child. And then the child is over here feeling that you're picking sides. And I've had opportunities to represent people, the perpetrator in the criminal side, and as a mother, I have to say, you, whether or not you did or didn't, the problem is we're talking about a child, and you would rather your child be at home versus be somewhere else. So remove yourself from the situation. Leave the home. But then I've had wives, girlfriends, baby mama. This is my provider. He can't go anywhere. How are we gonna pay our bills? And then that means the child has to stay in foster care.
Oh,
Sydney,
gosh.
it's interesting, the point you just brought up, I had a case in my court exactly like that. It was
Okay.
indecency with the child. And I want to say the parents have to watch how they handle an allegation after it comes up.
Okay.
That can affect the legal case from the beginning to the end. Are you reporting it? Are you reporting it timely? Do you believe the child? Are you trying to get to the root of the problem, or have you already taken sides before you get details with the new boyfriend, the new husband? And the case in my court, the young lady brought in a new boyfriend shortly after she separated from the father of her children. She had 4 children, and he was sleeping in the room with her, and so were the children.
Okay.
And there was an allegation that there was a small bed next to their bed, and he would get up in the middle of the night and touch one of the children. So we have to be careful who we bring around our children.
Yes.
And in the midst of that, there was a custody battle that was going on.
Oh,
so then
gosh.
that muddied the water even more.
I can see that, because I can see, the other parent saying, well, clearly there's something going on and there's danger in my kids. I need to have my children.
But the mother didn't report it. And even
Okay.
though the child told, which sometimes it takes a while for a child to tell something like that,
Yes.
even though she told, the mother didn't report it for months. Didn't mean it didn't happen, but then it could appear in court you didn't believe her.
Okay.
And she said she was working, and even though I know she had 2 jobs, but for her to take 2 months, then that brought in questions in the mind of the jurors. Well, did you even believe her? And if you don't believe her, your child, did this happen? Because there might not be a lot of forensic evidence
Right.
to go off of. So it's
Right.
important that you report it and do a full investigation. It may have happened, it may not have happened, but
Okay.
at least investigate it so it seems like you're doing your part. That could affect the case and credibility if you don't report it immediately.
Okay, so that is a great point that you bring up, is making sure that you're reporting information that your child is giving you in a timely fashion. And so, yes, ma'am.
And also with the report, a lot of times people fail to, in a perfect world, the way our court system is set up, you will have one judge that will hear everything. That's the perfect world. So you have someone, when you have a criminal issue going on, divorce going on.
The civil part
The civil part, all of it could be heard by the same judge. This judge has the whole picture, but that's not the perfect. We don't live in a perfect world.
Right.
So we have our court system set up judicial.
That works in Denton and Collin County. The same judge for everything. Unfortunately, that's not that.
They fail to report what's going on in the criminal court when they have family proceedings going on. Or in the family court, they may have filed for protective order, but it's not reported over here. But as soon as that person violates or does something that the other person don't want to do, then they go to the criminal court and want to revoke their bond. Then this judge is having to come up with, you've been allowing him to do it all this time, but now you want me to
Do something about it.
right. So
Oh, wow.
it goes both ways.
And one other element I wanted to add, when you talk about evidence, the state is going to try to get as much evidence as they can if they believe the offense occurred.
Okay.
They know it's gonna be difficult to prove. You have a child that's a witness. A part of their evidence in 2016 is Facebook. A part of their evidence in 2016 2015 are your text
Instagram.
messages.
Yes.
That's exhibit number 1 of the state. So the things you put on Facebook make a difference. In the case I was speaking of, the mother of the child was putting on Facebook how she didn't believe the child in the first place.
Oh my
And
gosh.
she knew that they were sending her boyfriend down for something he did not do. But by the time the case came to court, she said she believed it fully and that was not true. She didn't know they were going to pull up her Facebook, and so they were able to discredit her on the stand, even though she was saying she knew the child was telling the truth.
Wow.
They pulled up not only Facebook, but they also pulled up her text messages, where she was texting people the state was going to call as witnesses, saying the case had been canceled. Which obviously the case had not been canceled because we were still in trial. They
Oh my
said that as
gosh.
well, so it appeared she was trying to tamper with witnesses. Watch what you say on Facebook and watch what you
Yes.
text to other people about court proceedings or regarding your child.
Yes. Now, I do want to bring up one point is a hypervigilant parent, one that's super protective. And I will say, I can be mama bear when it comes to my little cubs, my babies, and they will always be my babies, and everybody who's a parent always sees their children. They're always children. Even my mother, you know, when I was pregnant with my second child, is just like, you're not little Sid anymore. So talk about parents that are really protective and can be seen as kind of going over the top with trying to protect their children, and the kid, some children could take advantage of situations like that and manipulate the parents, because I've talked to counselors about, you know, children that are observing domestic violence and they're seeing that mom and dad are not necessarily getting along. So there's an opportunity where I can work mom and get this over here, and if she doesn't give me what I want, well then I can go over here to dad's house and say, well, you know, mom's been mean to me. And now that stirs up a whole new thing, and you know, dad may be saying, well, you know, I need to get CPS involved because there's something going on. And it turns out she's just being a normal parent, and yeah, I don't want to give you a $500 tablet because you're not doing well in school. But I can go over here and tell dad, and he'll go ahead and buy it for me. But then that enters in, you know, some other challenges with getting agencies involved to make sure that the kids are safe. And that could go to those frivolous and fake CPS reports that sometimes could happen.
And sometimes there are false reports that are made, and CBS is pretty good about picking those out. They have certain things that they look for. You can't get it 100%.
Sure.
But that's when sometimes the parents have to be more mature and be adults and say, look, we're not in a relationship anymore.
Right.
So it doesn't matter about anything other than the children. That's what ties us, and be able to at least communicate regarding the children.
Right.
If you don't do that, you win the battle, but you lose the war, because you feel like you got back at the other person, or maybe this child is manipulating the system and you know you have some questions or concerns, but you're allowing it to happen. If you can have a civil relationship with the other parent enough to at least talk about the children, that's always good. Sometimes it's just not possible. Communication is broken down. I had a case where there were two parents where something similar happened. They had a teenage boy, and he had gotten to where he would fight the kids in school, fight the teacher, hit the teacher in the mouth. And the mother called the father, who she could not stand, and did not want to admit, I can't handle this child, I need some help, because she thought he's gonna say, see, I told you, you wanted custody, now you got custody and you can't handle it. Despite that, she picked up the phone, she called him and said, look, I need some help, you need to get down here to the school. That's his son. He didn't come for her, he didn't like her either, he came for that child.
Right.
He came down there, he talked with that child, he said, I need to take him home with me. And whatever conversation or whatever happened, they didn't have that problem out of the child anymore.
Okay.
And sometimes you have to swallow your pride and be able to say, I need this other parent. This child is getting out of control.
Right,
We're
right.
still not getting back together. Maybe I have to admit that there's something that the other parent can handle that I can't on this
Right.
particular issue. But if that's what's needed for my child, I'm gonna call you because I do know enough about you to know
Right.
you'll intervene to help the child.
Right, and that's just good co-parenting at that point. Yes, ma'am.
Also, I'll tell my clients, just a rule of thumb, if you can't repeat it, if you won't repeat it in front of a judge, don't write it, don't say it, because that's what happens. When they get on the stand, and as Judge stated, conversation that was recorded.
Right.
What do we do as the attorney?
Right, right. So just being very aware of possible consequences that can happen. And if you are a good parent and don't have anything to hide, then you don't worry about bad behavior and you're working on putting your children first. So that isn't a concern and you don't have to worry about that. And that will come out in court proceedings, that the judges will see that.
And Sydney, you brought up a good point. It's better to be overprotective than not protective enough.
So yes,
You have
talk
to
about
err
that,
on
yes.
side, just be overprotective.
Okay.
Because I'm telling you, people who prey on children, they look for opportunities to become the soccer coach, the cheer instructor, the person that will drive. Oh, don't worry, no, you can't get your daughter to cheer practice.
Right.
You got 2 jobs. I'll take yours. Wow, you saved the day.
Yes.
They want you to rely on them. And molesters look like everyone. From A to Z, there's no prototype for
Right.
someone who has that in the back of their mind that that's what they want to do.
That
to
is
a
an
child.
excellent point that
So
you
you
bring
have
up.
to be diligent to notice little things. I have 2 children, they're teenagers now, 17 and 14. But when they were young, I didn't let just anybody walk. I had a short list of people who could watch them.
Yes.
People that I trusted. So you have to be really careful with overnights. Can't do overnights. I have a little sister I adopted through big brothers, big
Right.
sisters. If you look down their list they have of what you can and can't do with your little sister or little brother, that's kind of what you need to be looking at as a parent, even though you don't have to. Just watch overnights. It's not just that you don't trust the person who they're spending the night with. Who else is gonna be in the home?
Right.
Cousin Bobby? Uncle
Right.
John? Well, you don't
Right.
know anything about
Right.
him. The friend
Right.
of the friend who was also spending the night with the other son?
Yes.
So you just
Yes.
don't have control over that household. So I think you should be diligent in watching who's around your child.
And you should. And I just remember, growing up, because I was raised by my grandmother, and if she did not know the parents, I couldn't go. So forget about an overnight. This was well before cell phones. If I wanted to go with my friend's parents, I had to go back home and ask for permission to go to McDonald's with them, to go somewhere else outside of their home because my grandmother wanted to know. And I brought that mentality with me with raising my kids. So I didn't know who you were going to go see. Nope, you're not going. And all the kids on our street, they love to come to the house and hang out with my kids, but they also knew my number one rule: don't act a fool with me. Because
My rules.
do not act a fool, because if you did, that meant you're gonna get your shoes and I'm taking you back home. And I'll never forget this one kid. I didn't know who he was. And he was just, part of the kids that were playing on the street. And I was like, who are your people? Where are your people? Because if something happened to you in my home, I need to know who to go talk to, who to take you and say, this happened, be it you got accidentally cut by something, you and my child didn't get along and a fight broke out or misunderstanding broke out, and to minimize what's going on, hey, I need to take you back home to your aunt, uncle, cousin, mom, dad, whoever is watching you right now, and explain to them what happened. So yes, parents, we definitely have to know who is around our children. And I'm like you, I'd rather be overprotective and scrutinize you a little bit too much and apologize later, but I want my children safe.
If you're dating someone, try to date them on the weekends or days that you don't have the children, so you don't have to worry about that interaction before you really checked out that person that you're dating. It's just you and them before you introduce them to the children.
Yes,
These
vetting.
are ways to keep CPS out of your life.
Yes, that vetting period is very important. I know my ex and I dated him for an entire year before I met his 2 children. That was just important, and I didn't want to rush and meet them. And I know, being a single mom, that I've had guys say to me, oh, well, bring your kids on a date. No, I don't know you yet. So I'm not going to put them in harm's way with introducing one, a stranger, and it turned out it doesn't work out yet. So now my kid has gotten attached to you, And they don't understand that, you know, we're not gonna be seeing each other anymore. They just know Mr. So-and-so isn't around hanging out with us anymore. So, yes, I totally agree that, you know, making sure that you know who's in your circle and know who's being around your children is primary with making sure that children are safe. And that's what, you know, all three of these shows for the month of December has been about, is making sure that your children are safe and that you're being the best parent that you can possibly be. Because no one wants to have, you know, strangers coming into their home, and making sure that you're doing everything right to make sure that your kids are safe. So I definitely want to thank you guys for coming. Yes. So guys, thank you for joining in with Coffee and Politics. I hope that you were able to get more useful information, if not for yourself, for someone that you may know that's going through a similar situation. So always submit your questions to me, comments, so I can ask my great guests about this information and make sure that we're covering topics and bringing out information that you guys need. So again, thank you for joining us, and thank you so much for being guests with me today. Thank you.